Remember, friends, now, if you can hear this point, you will have your key to all things that happen to you. There is no such thing as law of assertion. Someone else or something else or something outside of you cannot assert into your experience. It is only by law of attraction that you receive. Now that is pretty exciting, isn't it? Because that means you are in absolute control. But it can be a little uncomfortable in the beginning because you don't feel you have control yet. It is a little bit like having a runaway car and no one has yet instructed you as to what does what that affects the motion of the car. What we are wanting you to understand is that the thoughts that you think choose the direction of where you're going, and the feeling behind it chooses the speed with which you go there. The emotion is the power behind, and the thought is the direction of. And so if you're thinking about not having enough money, and it is really bothering you, you are really intense about it, you feel like you've hit the bottom, and you feel totally depressed about it, you are plummeting toward more financial trauma. If you just don't like it, but you don't think much about it, you're getting the point? And so you are living these lives where you are thinking many different things, many of them not in harmony with each other, and your emotional response to them depends upon how important they are to you. Law of attraction abounds if you give thought to something. Now, we have been observing the subject of health very keenly recently because as we're visiting with many of you, it is one of the top 3 issues, relationships being first, money being second, and health being third. And what we have noticed as we observe is that the majority of conversation regarding all of those subjects is in opposition to what most of you really want. A very wonderful woman said to us, "Abraham, I went home to visit my parents, and I could not help but notice that my mother never says anything bad about my father. I'd forgotten, I haven't been there in a while, and I'd forgotten how she is with him." And she said, "And when I get together with my girlfriends, we really have a boyfriend bashing party. Do you think that is the reason we are all single?" And we said, "You are a very wise woman. For as you give your thought and your words to what you do not want, as you give your negative offering, you are attracting the very thing that you are feeling, which is the lack of something you are wanting. As you look at someone and you see something missing and you focus upon it and it really bothers you, you attract that very thing, more of it. You attract more of the missing thing or the lack of what you're wanting, you see." Very good beginning. What more?
Regarding feeling, to those of us that are somewhat stoic and don't express a lot of feeling, I almost think sometimes it'd be beneficial to take an acting course. But I do write, and I have noticed that when I begin to write, I build up feeling that way. And I think at one time you told me that writing things down was the first most powerful thing.
It is. Writing is a very strong point of focus. In fact, it is your strongest point of focus. But let us talk about the subject of feeling. It is so important to understand that the way you feel is your guidance from within. There are only 2 emotions. One feels good and one feels bad. You call them all sorts of different things. But they are literally your guidance. When you feel good, your inner being is saying, this thought is in harmony with the greater intent. And when you feel bad, your inner being is saying, this thought or word or action is not in harmony with the greater intent. And what is the greater intent? It is the balance of intentions that you have defined through this physical experience. Now, as you are feeling, ordinarily, for most of you, it is not the first time the thought has come. In other words, you are thinking all sorts of thoughts, some of them even subliminal, some of them unconscious, some of them so insignificant that they are not yet ready to affect your experience. And so those sorts of thoughts do not evoke feeling from you. Only when they become powerful enough that they are actually attracting into your experience does your inner being offer you feeling about them, you see. And at that point, that is when you decide, Here is the way it works. You are stimulated to a new thought. Doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter if you heard it on the television or if you just received it from and you think it is your idea, or if you received it through inspiration from some non-physical entity, or if you heard it through the wall in the hotel room. It does not matter where you received the thought. The only thing that matters is how the new stimulated thought fits in with your balance of thought. And so if it is something that is important, it will, by nature of law of attraction, attract everything that you feel about it up out of your subconscious, out of your unconscious, and it will bring it right into your consciousness, where you will have a thought about it. And in the moment that you have this thought, your inner being then offers its emotional response to let you know how the new thought and the old thought fit together. That is how the balance of thought is created, and that is literally how you are creating your life experience. But because most of you have not understood that, as you were born into this physical experience where you did not understand that it is good to feel good, how you ever got mixed up on that, we will never know. How it ever got turned around where they said if it feels good, it is probably bad. It is no wonder that so many are upside down. And so as you did not understand what the emotional feeling meant, you said, I want. But then as what you wanted eluded you because you were focused more upon the lack of it than upon the wanting, you began to associate wanting with feeling bad. How many times have you said, I do not even want to go look at the new cars because it just reminds me that I can't afford them and I feel bad. Or I don't even want to go look at the beautiful things because or how often have you seen another one who had some quality, some beauty, and instead of it uplifting you, it made you feel bad? So many of our physical friends have associated wanting with negative emotion, and so then you began suppressing your wanting. You have been encouraged to stifle the way you feel. You have been encouraged to follow in the guidelines that others have laid for you. It is not appropriate to laugh under these conditions. You have been trained to be stoic, as you say. It is not appropriate to cry under any conditions. Go somewhere else and do it, your parents said to you. And so it is not a wonder that you have made a conscious, deliberate attempt at suppressing or subduing your emotions. And now here comes Abraham trying to bring them forth again.
When you talk about the balance of thought, is that like thought averaging when it finally tips the balance one way or the other?
It is a good way of putting it. It is the best way that we can think of. You are sort of on a teeter-totter, except you have so many thoughts. In other words, let us say that you have been encouraged. You were born into a critical household, and so everything you did was criticized. And so you very early began to feel that you couldn't do anything right. And so you began to expect criticism. And so as you went out into the world, your expectation of criticism was so strong that you attracted. That is where prejudice comes from. It is our notice that prejudice is not offered so much as it is attracted. Because you see, two who under the standards of the rules of prejudice should be prejudiced against, except one gets it and the other one doesn't. And it is because the expectation differs, you see. The best example that we have recently observed was Jerry and Esther and Tracy driving in this area of Los Angeles, coming upon an accident. And as they looked out of the automobile, they saw a dead man lying upon the road, not 10 feet from Esther's window. Now, Esther's thought was not what it would have been even a year ago. She did not ask, why do these things happen? Or could not something have intervened to save this poor soul? Instead, she said, why am I here looking at this? For she is coming to understand that he was going to have that experience with or without her, but she is willing now to assume some responsibility for what she is participating within. And then she remembered she had given a great amount of attention to a joke that had been offered by a comedian, talking about not wanting to buckle up, would rather be thrown clear. And Esther was amused by it and had repeated it several times, had repeated it each time she buckled up, as a matter of fact, for a period of days. And so it did not seem strange to her as she was looking at this dead man upon